Hello. In this video about the data source architectural patterns in our project, I will try to answer the question, or I will address the question, um, which pattern are we following? And probably a more generic question is, which pattern actually GPA implements, or which patterns I can implement with GPA? So in my perspective, I can say that GPA is just a technology. So it depends on the way I use it. Actually, I think that we can use GPA in a table data gateway or something similar to a table data gateway, where I have a single instance, and through this instance I do all the operations. So basically, this instance hides the SQL, so encapsulates the SQL, but shows me the table, so represents the table in memory, and I'm interacting with it. How? If I implement all my code just using the repository. So if all my business code, what it does is to invoke this repository, and every time it needs to do something, basically comes here and invokes one of these SQL commands, I would say, so in some sense, look, it's hidden. The command is actually that the SQL is here, but it's encapsulated because what the business logic invokes is this. So what I came out with a large number of methods here that basically define all my operations. So I can say this is a table gateway. Okay, so it's a table data gateway, right? So it's the technology, it's GPA, but I could just have decided to do it this way. But actually, we have not we have not done it this way. Why? Because we have our objects in memory. So basically, and we interact with them. Okay, so we look and invoke we try that the create and the delete occurs in the objects. Look what we do in the question or in the service. Okay, I do what? Save. So I go to this object and I do a save. So from this perspective, where I have in the objects, okay, just is a syntactic way, but could be question.save. I have in the objects, in the domain objects, the methods that contain the code to the database. I can sync it, or I can see it as actually a raw data gateway. Look, I have the raw data gateway. Of course, I need to have the repository to get them. But then, when I invoke the operations, I invoke them in the objects. When I do the change in the database, I invoke them in the objects. So that's a way to look at it. But actually, in our code, so I could have used GPA as a raw data gateway. But actually, we have done a little bit more. Why? Well, what we have done is that in our domain entities, you have methods, business logic, right? You have methods that implement our business logic. So besides the gets and sets, besides the creates and deletes from the database, we have these. So maybe we are closer to Active Record, where I have the operations to store, read, update from the database, and I have this. And the final question is, well, are we actually going further and more than an active record? Are we being able to have a data mapper? And I believe that here we have some limitations here. With Phoenix Framework, you could have done a data mapper, but with these, we have some limitations. Why? First, actually, we cannot hide what is the structure of the database. So we cannot have a person and change how the person is in database without changing the person. Why? Because if you look, there's a GPA tells me that should be a mapping between domain entity and table. So there's already a relation one-to-one between table. And we'll see these relations then for all the many-to-many. And so when your structure your structure on this side is not independent on the structure on the object side, is not independent on the structure on the database side. So it's not a data mapper. But as a little bit of data mapper in this update method, not in the insert and delete, in the sense that the update method actually is implicit. The create and delete should be here as an active record. But if you look here, okay, in the question service, so when you do a create question, as I told you, you have to do explicitly in the active record. Hey, save yourself, okay? But when I do an update, I just do an update. Why? I just update the domain entity. I'm updating the domain entity. And inside the domain entity, I have any code that tells me, store this in the database. This automatically changes the database. So it's closer to the data mapper in this aspect. Oh, but that's the only one. Okay, look, the delete is active record again. Okay, so what is interesting about this is that we have the patterns, we have a technology, and we have seen that using the same technology, I can decide to use different patterns. You may ask, hey, for instance, if I was really concerned with performance, probably I could try to write a lot of code here. It would be less object-oriented. It would be harder to maintain. Probably would be better performance because everything is with the direct access to the database and change the database. So it's interesting. So the same, different technology, you can develop it according to the different patterns. So sometimes the technology forces you for a specific architectural structure. That's the case, for instance, of Phoenix framework. If you used Phoenix framework, yes, it forced me to be a data mapper. Okay. In this case, it allows you variation. So you use the technology and you can get variations. You can decide which type of patterns you're going to apply for the data source part. Okay. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.